Hi everyone, I'm Oscar from Underdog, and today I want to give you a mixing tutorial where we're going to look at 3 ways to make your sound stereo. Let's get into it. Alright, number 1 way, panning. You're probably aware of this one. So panning takes a stereo signal, right, and it'll balance the left and the right channels differently to each other. So if you pan the knob all the way to the left, it's going to make the left stereo channel the loudest, and if you pan all the way to the right, it's going to make the right stereo channel the loudest, right? You see these panels everywhere. You see them on mixing consoles like this. In Ableton, you see it right in your session view underneath, like right next to the fader. This is fine. This is great. You can play something a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. But once you start reaching the extremes of your 180 degrees sound stage, what happens is you will hear the signal completely in your left ear. Now, what happens then does not make sense to our human brain, because imagine that there is an ambulance driving past you on the left. You're not just going to hear that only in your left ear. You're going to hear that in both ears, but you're still going to be very aware of it coming from the left. So today we're going to look at panning and 2 other ways at which you can place your sound in the stereo spectrum. So let's get into it. So here we are in Ableton, completely empty set, and what I want to show you is just this effect on very basic sounds. So a sound that I like to demonstrate stereo on is the 808 rim shot. It's this one. This one. Because it's nice and simple and mid-rangey, and it comes from the perfect center. So let's program a simple little pattern here. 3/16 notes, always a golden one. There we go. Okay, so this is coming from dead center. Now, technique number 1, panning. In Ableton session view, this button here is the pan pot. This pan pot, you can move it to the left to hear your sound completely to the left. You can move it to the right, and as you can see, only the right channel here is making sound. So if you're wearing headphones, right now, it's very clearly coming just from the left ear. There's nothing in your right ear. Vice versa, right now, there's only info in your right ear, nothing in your left ear. Feels a bit weird. That silence is quite unnatural that you're hearing in the other ear. If you're listening to this on speakers, however, even if you've panned it completely to the left speaker's sound still reaches your right ear, so it's less problematic on speakers. So this is something to pay attention to. When you want something to be in full focus and to demand the attention of the listener, you usually want it to live in the center of your sound stage. It can be either be a mono sound, or it can be a very wide sound that still sits in the center. Okay? If you want to deprioritize things, you can pan them a little bit to the sides. But if you start panning things to the extremes, they might draw quite a lot of attention to themselves because the mind's eye is pulled away from the center into one of the ears. So just be careful with that. This is one of the reasons why in my own mixes, I actually rarely pan in this way. Maybe a little bit just to pull things a little bit out of the center, but rarely very far. Now, let's look at 2 other ways to pan things in an interesting way. Well, the first one that I want to show you is the EQ8. EQ8 is an equalizer which affects the frequencies that you can hear, right? So in the typical usage, you would just boost a couple of frequencies or cut a couple of frequencies in this manner, right? So let's just show what that sounds like. Boosting that high click, boosting the low click, cutting the low click, cutting the high click, or even doing something like a low pass filter. Okay, this is the typical use of the EQ8. Now, the EQ8 in Ableton has a few other modes, and there's particularly the left-right mode and the mid-side mode. Now, the mid-side mode, I won't talk about it right now, but it's a very powerful mode. The most interesting mode right now is the left-right mode. So what we do with the left-right mode, once we set it to this little button here appears, and we can select either the left channel or the right channel. The left channel here has no filters on it. The right channel has 4 default ones, so I'm just going to remove them and just take 1. So what I can do is I can boost some frequencies just in the right. even boost it quite widely. And on the left, I can cut the same frequencies, subtly shifting that sound to the right. I might just quickly put a little limiter on there so it doesn't end up clipping on the way out. So this little equalizer here, we've put it to left-right mode, and the left and the right, we've given them inverted shapes. And so we've panned it slightly to the right. And if you take it away, it's back in the center. And now it's slightly to the right. And imagine we had a second element. Like, let's put this one exactly on the rim shot. So that when we click on the rim shot in the drum rack, this effect is now only affecting the rim shot. Imagine we're going to add another element, and we're going to also add another EQ8 to it. So let's say the mid-tom. That mid-tom, what we're going to do is we're going to pan it to the left by simply inverting the scale. This scale here starts at 100%, and you can set it down to 0% where it doesn't affect anything. And then you can set it to -100, which literally just changes the direction of the way it's programmed. So let's program a little sound in there. Mid-tom. This one. So the mid-tom is now panned slightly to the left. We can exaggerate this. There we go. So now we've created a little bit of stereo separation without simply panning things. In fact, when you have some special effects like a stereo imager, there's some things like the ozone stereo imager, etc. What they'll often do is they will just make a sound stereo by creating a curve that's kind of like this, in a very sort of small granular way, in much smaller curves than I'm doing here. It'll just create sort of inverted EQ curves, panning some left, some right, some left, some right. But in global, you still kind of feel like the sound then comes from the center, even though it's made it sound more wide. So this is the EQ way of panning, of placing a sound in the stereo field. Now, let's look at method number 3, which is also my favorite method, which is called the Haas effect. And it's a psychoacoustic phenomenon where we place a sound in the stereo spectrum based on the delay between when the sound hits our left and our right ear. So that ambulance that I was talking about in the introduction, that ambulance is driving past you on the left, and that siren is wailing really loud, and it hits your left ear, and then it takes a fraction of a moment longer to hit your right ear because it has to bounce off some walls or whatever. And those like 10 milliseconds that it takes to hit your right ear are enough for your brain to say, whoop, it's on the left. Or whoop, it's on the right if it's the other way around. So we can simulate this in Ableton by duplicating a channel and delaying one of those signals by like 10 milliseconds, something like this. And then panning one left and one right. So let me show you on a new one how that would sound. Let's do something on the 707 just to spice it up a little bit. Yeah, that rim shot. Let's do that. All right. Let's do. There we go. Okay. So this one, we're going to apply the Haas effect to it. So right now it's fully mono. As you can see, both channels are equally loud. So the cleanest way to show you this might be to do it like this and say channel L, duplicate it, and say channel R. And this channel I'm going to pan completely to the left, and this one I'm going to pan completely to the right. So together they sound like a mono channel. But what we're going to do now is we're going to delay one of them by about 10 milliseconds. So let's delay the right channel by about 10 milliseconds. And we can do this with Ableton's delay, regular delay. There we go. So we turn off the sync mode, so we're working in milliseconds. turn down the feedback because we don't really want it to like echo. Make it 100% wet. Okay, and now, so what we've got now is a whole signal that is quite simply delayed by 1 millisecond. It sounds almost identical, but once we bring it up to about 5 to 10 milliseconds, see what happens. I really think you should listen to this on headphones to really appreciate the difference here. So, mono in the center. On the left. You hear that? Even though the left and the right channels are equally loud, have the same EQ content, they're completely identical except for when they hit your ear. And because there's a slight delay before it hits your right ear, your brain says, okay, the sound is on the left side. Once you go too far, it becomes weird, like a kind of a ping pong delay, like it becomes two separate sound events in your mind. So you want to keep these delays pretty short. And in case you don't want to make two channels to do this, one other way of doing this is if you make it, if you put it in the center like this. To do this, you can group this delay unit, create two different effect chains, call one the dry and the other one the delayed, and then pan one completely to one side and one completely to the other side. This thing is a little pan control. And so the right side here is delayed, the left side is completely dry, there's nothing affecting it, and so you'll get the same effect. Let's see. Switch it around. Now it comes from the right. All right, that was it for me today. That was just 3 ways to place your sound in the stereo spectrum. There's a few more, but those will already get you very far to make good mixing decisions, okay? Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Hope this was helpful, and take care, okay? Bye-bye. Would you like to try making electronic music? That's what we do at Underdog Electronic Music School, based in Brussels. We offer a program called the Bootcamp program, which is designed for absolute beginners who want to start having fun making their own music, but who don't have experience yet doing that. We run online classrooms in small groups where you and a real teacher go through 12 classes where you see from A to Z how to make electronic music and how to start having fun. You can ask any questions at any moment, and you can also focus on the genres and artists that you love so that you can start making the music that you are passionate about. Check out the details on www.underdog.brussels and get in touch for a test session or to sign up for one of the classes. So, until we hear from you, see you online.